On a quiet day, a man reaches for a bag of chips while a young girl watches him. Unfortunately, the bag he grabs has a defect, and most of the chips spill onto the floor. The girl accuses him of trying to steal the snacks, but he quickly denies it. At that moment, the store's television, normally reserved for news broadcasts, interrupts with an urgent announcement. A minor earthquake has occurred nearby. Though its magnitude is small and there are no casualties, experts warn that its intensity is steadily increasing. Precautionary measures will need to be considered. Outside, a group of students glance towards something unusual. In an instant, an enormous structure erupts from the ground, sending dirt flying and shattering the store's glass windows. Dust fills the air, but the man shields the girl from harm. She, however, is far less concerned about the debris than about the strange object that has emerged. Across England, Japan, and every nation worldwide, similar mysterious, towering structures of colossal scale appear without explanation. People soon name them the Towers of Nightmares. Select individuals receive invitations to become Tower Walkers, heroes tasked with saving the world. Those who accept are transported directly into the tower's battlefields and granted the blessings of the interface system, allowing them to acquire items and powerful skills almost as if they were inside a game. But they quickly discover that this is no game at all. The new recruits watch countless screens showing events outside as the tower announces an impending tower impact in their world. Outside, construction workers notice a figure high above and shout for them to come down while others call the authorities. But this is no person, it is a demon, with many more following behind. This marks the onset of a catastrophe. From the towers, monsters pour onto the Earth's surface in an event soon named the Tower Impact. Sirens wail as people flee, while the military attempts to subdue the creatures. Even tank shells prove useless, leaving the beasts to wreak havoc unchecked. In the chaos, 1/3 of the world's population is wiped out. The Tower Walkers, those who accepted the invitation, can only watch helplessly as humanity is slaughtered. One recalls the message in the invitation about saving the world, urging everyone not to lose hope. They vow to climb the tower and save what remains of humanity. With their special abilities and unique qualifications, the Walkers begin their assault on the tower to halt the complete annihilation of humankind. They come to an apparently impenetrable wall. As they relentlessly strike it with their weapons, the wall slowly crumbles, revealing a glowing stone. Upon closer inspection, they realize it is a return stone, capable of sending its user back to the moment they first received the invitation, retaining all memories from that point onward. The group is stunned by the stone's power. Huang Inchin, the Walker's captain, announces he will be the one to test it. As he activates the stone, a burst of blue light blinds everyone. When their vision clears, Inchin is vanished completely. The others are left bewildered, wondering if he will simply reappear in the same place, even if he has traveled to the past. Sakamoto, a former science professor, suggests the answer might be straightforward. Inchin has indeed returned to the past, but in doing so, the timeline has split, creating a separate reality. Drawing on established scientific concepts such as the multiverse and parallel universe theories, Sakamoto explains that their current situation is the result of a fractured timeline. When Inchin journeyed into the past, their worlds diverged completely. The Walkers struggle to process this revelation, but at least they know Inchin truly returned to the past. However, his actions there will not necessarily change anything in their current world. As far as they know, the tower has never lied about the function of an item. The return stone genuinely allows them to travel back to a world where the timeline has split. All of this is mere speculation, of course, but they cannot dismiss the possibility that everyone who uses the stone is transported to the same split timeline. The items within this tower defy the very limits of human understanding. Around that time, the second tower impact struck the outside world. Before humanity could be completely annihilated, the Walkers faced a critical decision. Would they use the stones to return to the past, or remain in the tower and meet a grim fate? In a savage battle against an equally savage beast, most of them were being wiped out. When it became clear the situation was hopeless, some began using their return stones. One by one, they vanished, until only a single member of the party remained. Falling to his knees, he accepted that this was the day he would die. Then, a figure wielding 2 daggers tore through the towering beast, completely annihilating it, before asking the surviving man if he was all right. The man nodded, and soon more walkers emerged from behind the dagger wielder. One of them scoffed, wondering aloud how so many could have chosen to run away. The lone survivor could only weep, and his savior thanked him for holding out until the very end. They handed him a stone. These were the only ones left in the tower who had never been tempted by the return stone's humanity's last line of defense. The final warriors, Carpe diem. One fateful day, most of them lay dead on the ground. One of the few still standing asked, "When did everything go so wrong?" Earlier, during a battle with a monster, the dagger wielder had urged Jaewon to strike. Moving in from behind, Jaewon joined in a combination attack that brought the creature down. He asked about casualties, and the dagger wielder replied that, fortunately, there had been none that day. The injured would recover with healing and rest. Perhaps, at this pace, they might even reach the final floor. As some waved to them, Jaewon waved back, then noticed the monster had dropped something. It was the suppressing dragon sword, infused with the power of both sun and moon, a weapon forged by the tiger ghost, master of the 85th floor, over 1,000 days for the sole purpose of slaying a dragon. Picking it up, he recalled Yun Huen's words. They might indeed reach the final floor. Everything seemed to be moving in their favor. But when they reached the 98th floor, the chamber of purgatory, reality struck mercilessly. Most of his comrades were dead or dying, leaving him as the last one standing. The beast slammed him against a wall, leaving his vision blurred and his body weak. In his heart, he knew it was over. Everything they had endured together, was it all just to die like a dog in this cursed place? The beast charged, unleashing a torrent of flames, but Yun Huen suddenly struck from behind, landing powerful blows. He urged Jaewon to rise, warning that he could not defeat the creature alone. The beast moved too quickly, however, and impaled Yun Huen on its horn, a wound beyond healing. Jaewon cried out in anguish as the beast slammed Yun Huen into the wall. Watching helplessly, he summoned every last ounce of strength, grasped his sword, and charged. In that single second where everything would be decided, Jaewon emerged victorious. He told Yun Huen they should move, but the wound was too deep. In his hand was a return stone, already activated. He apologized. Jaewon thought of how this man had never once lost his smile, even in the cruel and unforgiving tower, a trait that had earned him the title, the Smile Knight. That same Smile Knight lost his smile today for the first time. Chu urged him to go before he changed his mind, so he walked away. The stone Yun Huen was holding was far too shabby, its power having faded long ago. As he climbed a set of stairs, he thought about Chuan, who was much stronger than he had originally believed. Thanks to that strength, he became convinced it was possible to reach the top of this hellish tower. In his final moments, he sat by a window and murmured that if it were him, perhaps this world had not yet lost its hope. With those last words, the smiling knight's life came to an end. Jae-Hyun paused at the door to the next floor, thinking of Yun Huen and what a steadfast friend he had been all this time. Gathering his courage and resolve, he moved forward into the 99th tower, which appeared to be a vast snowfield. Within it, he dodged countless attacks from a beast that urged him to give up, claiming the situation was hopeless. But H1 refused, or perhaps the beast was simply too tired of playing with him so soon. It continued its assault, and later, Jaewon hid beneath it. This infuriated the beast, which hated the game of hide and seek they had fallen into. It had been 10 whole years since he first reached the 99th floor. Though he had faced many dire situations on his way to the 98th floor, the dangers of the 99th were incomparable to any below. The boss of this floor was the Ice Dragoness. Its breath, a chill from a forgotten land, was almost impossible to endure. Even with his cold resistance maximized, Juwon knew that without the equipment abandoned by previous walkers, he would have perished much earlier. He carried the suppressing dragon sword from the 85th floor, the ice demon armor gifted to him by Yun Huen, and the Flame King's bracelet from Hannesio. He still regretted being too weak to protect her, and her image haunted him to this day. As he recalled how she died, the blacksmith interrupted his thoughts, asking if he truly intended to challenge the 99th tower again. Juwon confirmed it, feeling that now he could finally overcome it. The blacksmith of Atopos, Jae, wondered aloud if that would truly be the case. Atopos was the village reclaimed after the defeat of the 50th floor boss, the monstrous dragon Altaminos. Though countless injured or dead walkers arrived each day, hope was never completely lost. Priests had established emergency rescue units for walkers too injured to continue, and the blacksmiths of the workshops forged equipment free of charge for those still fighting for humanity's survival. Jaewon observed that Jae appeared to be the only blacksmith left in Atopos. Jae told him not to remind him, since Jaewon was his only customer anyway. More troubling was that supplies from the lower floors were dwindling rapidly. A few months ago, minerals still came in, but now they were nearly impossible to find. Jaewon reasoned that this was inevitable, as barely any humans remained alive in the tower. He no longer knew what year it was. More than 10 tower impacts had already occurred, and since then, no one had been summoned to the first floor. Humanity on Earth was likely wiped out. Jae chose not to respond to this, instead asking if nothing had been troubling him on his climbs lately. Jaewon found the question odd. At the location where the first return stone had been discovered, he had seen strange markings on the wall, markings that could not have been made by any human. And if not by a person, then by whom? Still, he said he had found nothing of particular note. Jae recalls that 2 days ago, Grandma Hyline vanished. In the tower, people do not age, so if someone disappears, it can only mean one of two things. Either they returned to the past using a stone, or they jumped from the tower. Hyline from Hyline's potion and Jae from Jae's workshop were the only remaining support-type walkers. Jae continued working tirelessly when Jaein suggested that he should teach him the blacksmithing skill. Jae paused his forging, and Jaein smiled. Later, upon returning to the 99th floor, Velkaze remarked that Jae must be tired of playing hide and seek. He then congratulated him, noting that no human had ever reached the 99th floor alone since the creation of the tower. At the very least, Velkaze said, he would acknowledge Jae as an extraordinary human and recognize his existence. Jaein found it amusing that the last one to acknowledge him would be a monster rather than a human. He observed that the place would feel empty after he killed Velkaze. However, Velkaze was certain such an outcome was impossible. Jaein prepared to attack and demanded to know why Velkaze was so confident, pointing out that even the armor Velkaze took pride in was beginning to crack. Velkaze found Jaein's arrogance irritating and declared that their game was over. The battle raged until Jaein could fight no longer, his left arm and leg restrained. Velkaze asked why he continued struggling to the very end, pointing out that even if he persevered, his fate would be one of solitude and crushing nothingness. Jaein retorted that Velkaze talked far too much for a being like him, then broke free of the restraints, ready to strike once more. Velkaze warned that another thrust would achieve nothing and advised him to surrender, claiming that skill alone could not defeat him. Jaein had started raiding the tower later than most, missing out on rare opportunities such as secret classes and special skills, which were quickly taken by others. Because of this, he abandoned the pursuit of other abilities and devoted himself entirely to mastering one thing, the thrust. He thrust again and again, eventually slaying over 50 million monsters with it. His comrades even joked that his very identity was thrust. Over time, his technique evolved faster, sharper, and far more powerful. Eventually, his thrust surpassed its original purpose, rivaling, or even surpassing, the strength of hidden skills. But unlike a skill, it consumed no spirit power, allowing him to fight without tiring. Even so, Velkaze's armor was far too durable. After hundreds of thrusts, Jaein had only managed to leave minor scratches. Velkaze then used his position to prepare an attack, and Jaein realized dodging was no longer an option. In that moment, he saw a familiar light, the same one he had witnessed on the 98th floor. Deciding to put everything into a single strike, he launched his attack with all his might. The blow landed with tremendous force, leaving Velkaze shocked that he had actually managed to damage him. However, Velkaze noted it was insufficient, as such an attack should have destroyed his entire jaw. He warned Jaein not to grow overconfident from landing a single hit, then rose into the air, declaring that this time he would finish him for good. Velkaze unleashed a beam, pursuing the fleeing Jaein. Jaein realized that if Velkaze kept attacking from above, his chances of victory were slim. Velkaze landed beside him and remarked that it was unfortunate if there had been 10 more humans like Jaein, Perhaps Velkes could have been slain. He added that if his race had not been deceived by the mayor's stone, their fate as a species might have been entirely different. Jayan demanded to know what he meant, but Velkes had no intention of explaining further and lunged at him with his claw. Jahyun manages to escape and, standing at the doorway, reflects that if Velkes' claw had even grazed him, it would have meant his death. His mind lingers on Velkes' words about the mayor's stone, wondering what it could be. The battle had raged for 5 long years, but at last Velkes took his final step, and the system flooded Jahyun with countless congratulatory messages. The barrage of pop-ups irritated him, prompting him to ask Velkes about the mayor's stone. Velkes replies that Jahyun already knows the answer though. In time, he will learn everything. On the final floor, Velkes drops the ice dragon sword, imbued with his own breath. Jahyun picks it up, noting it hardly resembles a sword at all. From a mass of black, viscous substance, a doorway forms, and Jahyun steps inside. Above it, glowing sigils appear, spelling out "Control Room." On the other side, he is met with countless monitors displaying scenes from within the tower, the summoning grounds, autotopos, everything. From behind, a voice remarks that it is surprising he arrived here so soon, expecting Jahyun would have visited the village first. Jahyun prepares to attack, but the voice advises him not to be so tense, adding that he had forgotten to broadcast an important message, so Jahyun should wait a moment. A system notification then appears, congratulating him for being the first to clear the tutorial games in World 294. His achievement is now recorded in the Undying Library, the Akashic Records, preserved so that only the monarchs of the Almighty Land can view it. Jahyun ignores most of the message, fixating on a single question: what does it mean by tutorial? His world shatters as the man steps into view, acknowledging the shock but advising him to recover quickly, lest his emotions consume him. Unfortunately, the warning comes too late. Still, the man reassures him, noting he has done exceptionally well for a mere human. Suddenly, something shifts the water, reflecting Jahyun's emotions clears. The stranger notes his quick recovery, faster than expected. Jahyun demands to know who he is. The man apologizes, saying he was too excited to meet him and forgot to introduce himself. To think that Jahyun reached the 100th floor alone, something that has never happened before. He introduces himself as Beastrain, a demon and the current master of the Tower of Nightmares, the very tower Jahyun has just conquered. Jahyun remarks that if all of this was merely a tutorial, then the real game has yet to begin. Beastrain praises his quick deduction, but says there is something he must see first. With a snap of his fingers, a large screen appears, displaying the moment Jahyun first entered the tower. Jahyun watches, eyes widening, as Beastrain comments on how fresh he looked back then, noting it has been a long time since he last saw those scenes. The footage shows Yunin introducing Jahyun to the party, and Beastrain says his favorite part is about to play a moment they never saw coming, a true tearjerker. He claims he cried endlessly watching it, then asks Jahyun how he feels about it. Regret, anger, sadness. Such feelings are natural, but ultimately pointless now. Still, out of pity, Beastrain offers him a rare gift, the chance to start the game over from the very beginning. It would be just like the novels of Jahyun's world, where the protagonist restarts with all memories intact. Jahyun hesitates. Torn wasn't his purpose to save the world by climbing the tower. That's what the invitation had promised. But now, it seems they had been deceived from the very start. There was never a way to stop the tower's impact. The only thing they could ever do was keep raiding this cursed tower. The salvation of humanity had always been nothing more than a false hope of fluke. Yeon observed that Beastrain likely already knew this well, yet he still vowed never to return to the past. Beastrain burst into laughter, so violently that only his massive mouth seemed to remain visible. Was Yeon truly speaking about the past? Beastrain decided it was time to make things clear to avoid any further confusion. He explained that no item within the tower, nor in the Almighty Land, had the power to send anyone back to the past. Jahyun recalled the existence of a return stone in the tower only to realize something unsettling. That stone was the mayor's stone Velkes had once mentioned, the very object that had deceived them. Beastrain confirmed it, revealing that its true name was indeed the mayor's stone, and that it did not return people to the past. Instead, it trapped them within dreams crafted by the mayor himself. B-Strain admitted he could never have imagined until they reached the 77th floor that there existed a race so consumed with the idea of returning to the past. Only humans carried such an obsession. Chu affirmed this, and B-Strain congratulated him for keeping a cool head. But it was time, he said, to begin the real game. This wasn't about going back, it was more akin to starting a new game plus. He expressed his trust that Jaehyun would make the wiser choice. Without hesitation, Jae-won pressed no, leaving B-Strain perplexed. John explained that, thanks to B-Strain, he now understood the tower's true nature. A system tab appeared, revealing the tower's details. It was the Stronghold of Regrets, the second creation of the Nightmare's architect, Mara Mullick. Jae-won stated that he had already entered the mayor's dream forged by the tower, and if that was the case, he would hunt the mayor down and advance to the next floor. B-Strain sighed, telling him there was nothing beyond that floor, as it simply did not exist. Jae-won refused to believe him. B-Strain speculated aloud that perhaps Jae-won was doing this because the reward of returning to the past with his memories intact seemed too meager. At that moment, Jae-won drove his sword into B-Strain's neck, severing his head. Though irritated, B-Strain attempted to bargain, offering hidden items or skills, anything he desired, for he had certainly earned them. But Jae-won declined, saying he needed none of those things. As B-Strain's head reformed, he asked whether Jae-won truly had no wish to return to his original world. Since Jae-won had realized he was within a dream of the tower, the so-called tower impacts had never truly existed. With a snap of his fingers, the scenery shifted to the outside world. Everyone appeared alive, healthy, and safe, leaving Jae-won in a daze. B-Strain believed he finally understood no one had truly died. For someone like Jae-won, who drew meaning from living among others, this must be a great relief. Yet B-Strain said he had forgotten to show the most important truth. Another snap of his fingers transported them to a hospital room, where every awakened individual lay comatose. Jae-won gazed at his unconscious body, asking if that was truly him. B-Strain remarked on how clean and unscathed he looked. In the tower, decades had passed, but in the real world, only a single month had gone by. Worse still, Jae-won could never realistically hope to defeat him. Compared to B-Strain, a mighty dragon, Jae-won was nothing more than a human who had barely survived the tutorial. Jae-won, however, smirked in relief. If B-Strain was a dragon, then he already had experience hunting one. B-Strain found his cheeky defiance irritating, and so their long battle began. Much later, B-Strain wandered into Jae's store, only to find it empty. As he worked on a blade, he recalled that yesterday had marked Jae-won's 72nd attempt. Every day, without pause, Jae-won had challenged him, never landing a single mark, yet never dying either. It seemed B-Strain was deliberately keeping him alive. That's why, no matter how many days or years it takes, he will defeat him. B-Strain watches from several monitors, thinking to himself that patience is necessary. This man is a valuable product, one he intends to sell. A very special product. In all his experience as a professional cultivator, he has never encountered anything quite like this. A cultivator's role is to ensure that a product adapts safely to the almighty land, guiding it through a secondary cultivation process so that it matures and improves in quality. The primary method is to cull the undesirable seeds, leaving only the strongest behind, a process carried out through the tutorial game. Once complete, the chosen product can truly begin to grow in the real game. The secondary process then provides the selected seeds with the ideal water and soil needed for growth. But to think that a product would refuse to proceed to the next stage, it's unthinkable. Should he simply take a gamble and kill him? After all, death inside the tower does not destroy the soul. Yet, what if their differences cause harm? The harvesters would certainly not overlook that. He must raise this one into a flawless diamond and sell him at the highest price. It's time he cultivated a high-ranking demon. There's also the matter of repaying the loan he took to purchase this tower. This individual is so extraordinary that even gods who never strike deals with demons have reached out to him. In their next battle, B-Strain asks plainly what he truly desires. Doesn't he tire of this little game they keep playing? If he would simply begin the real game, B-Strain would be more than satisfied with the results. So why keep resisting? With a sudden motion, B-Strain summons a massive ice wall and positions himself behind Hyun. Before Hyun can react, B-Strain slams him into the wall. His patience is at its limit. He tries desperately to convince Hyun to begin the next game, even offering secret skills and powerful items. Why, in all that is good, does he insist on continuing something so utterly pointless? Jan's answer is simple. He will hunt him down and proceed to the next floor. The response drives B-Strain into a frenzy. What must he do to even make him consider playing the real game? Hua, however, believes this is the moment he has been waiting for now. He can use B-Strain. He has a request. They sit at a table, and B-Strain warns him not to be too surprised by the information he is about to share. Their universe is not composed of a single dimension. Jaewon replies that he already knew. After all, parallel universes and the multiverse are common topics of speculation on Earth. B-Strain elaborates. There is one primary dimensional level known as the Almighty Land. Beneath it are countless alternate branches. Earth is merely one of the many small planets scattered among these alternations, designated as the 294th world. In the Tower of Nightmares, where they currently are, walkers can acquire skills and items, improve their stats, and adapt to the Almighty Land system, earning the chance to travel to entirely new worlds. For demons like him, their role is to support the game. Chihen asks a simple question: why is he doing this? B-Strain smiles knowingly, suggesting that this isn't the real question on his mind. Snapping his fingers, he guesses that Jaewon is really wondering, among all the countless alternate worlds, why did the Tower of Nightmares come to his? Why were he and his people forced into such a fate? With a growing grin, B-Strain states that his world was chosen simply by chance. Jaewon cuts him off, demanding he stop. What he truly wants to know is why someone like B-Strain is operating this tower. This surprises B-Strain. He attempts to dodge the question, claiming it's simply something his race volunteers to do. But Jaewon's expression makes it clear he doesn't believe him. However, demons truly do enjoy volunteering. Many of them personally watch over other special walkers on different planets. They have created a paradise where humans, monsters, and demons coexist peacefully. The Harvesters, however, have reached the limit of their patience and are now demanding that he finish this task at once. He attempts to persuade Jaewon one final time, but Jaewon does not believe him for a moment. It appears Jaewon can also read the Harvester's words. Earlier, Jaewon examined his status window and saw that all his stats had been maxed out. Yet even with this, he cannot seem to defeat B-Strain no matter what he tries. Can humans truly be reduced to nothing in this world system? That's when he feels something stir in his chest. Looking forward, he notices a glowing light emanating from the ice. He reaches out and touches it. The light transforms into both fine particles and rough sugar-like cubes, shifting form with each change. These particles are the very essence of the world, and no matter their form, he instinctively understands what they are. This, it seems, is why he can read the monarch's messages. When he inquires about them, B-Strain is pleased that he has shown some interest. The monarch are the rulers of the Almighty Land, and typically, those who clear the game and enter their world are invited to join one of their ranks. Chon asks further about the possibility of joining forces with them. B-Strain explains that the choice of monarch will drastically shape one's future. If Chon follows his advice and does as he instructs, B-Strain swears upon his honor as a demon that he will devote all his power to placing him under a great monarch. Of course, this offer only applies if Chon is truly willing to participate in the main game. Jaewon remarks that he sounds like someone trying to sell him insurance, but nonetheless agrees to follow his lead. In exactly 10 days, he will be out of this place. 9 days later, Jaewon continues to practice his thrust technique while B-Strain watches in boredom, knowing he only needs to be patient for one more day. Then he will finally have the chance to repay those who deceived him with this tower. If he had not been deceived in the first place, he would not be enduring this ordeal. The tower he purchased turned out to be a first-generation antique so ancient that no one could even determine its true age. Those corrupt mayors sold it to him as though it were an incredible deal. If only it had been a third-generation tower, it would have possessed the function to forcibly end the tutorial without damaging the product. But with this fair and square tower, the game cannot be ended without the product's consent. In truth, what could he have done differently? It seems that in this world, poverty is a sin. He can only hope that tomorrow this nightmare will end. The next day, he offers CH1 a wealth of tips and a detailed summary of what lies ahead. Soon, the message to end the tutorial game appears once again. B-Strain asks if he has memorized everything, and CH1 confirms it. Now, all that remains is for him to press the yes button. B-Strain, having waited so long for this moment, sheds a tear of joy. But before the relief can settle in, Jaewon strikes him once again. B-Strain demands to know what he is doing, but deep down, he already knows the answer. Jaewon is simply hunting him. After becoming aware of the particles, his thrusting motion grew unstable. Each time he struck, a strange discomfort ran through him, as though one of his senses had suddenly awakened. Without hesitation, he struck B-Strain with incredible force and speed. Is this what it means to truly feel alive? Later, on the 91st floor, a place used as a breeding ground, B-Strain remarked that he had never encountered anyone like him before, adding that it would have been easier for both of them if things had been this way sooner. Isn't that right? He asked. Jaewon questioned what B-Strain was planning, reminding him that he couldn't finish the tutorial without Jaewon's direct consent. B-Strain agreed, but admitted he had abandoned any hope of obtaining that consent long ago. This time, however, he wanted to ask a single question. Why did Jaewon believe this tutorial would go on forever? In reality, the Tower of Nightmares was designed to end automatically 100 days after the tutorial was cleared. His only option was to restrain Jaewon and wait for the main game to begin. Jaewon recalled that, in the Almighty Land, B-Strain was known as the Gentleman of Casualment, a being who had lived for 784 years and traveled through 128 worlds, committing the same vile cultivation against peaceful races. When B-Strain tried to ask how Jaewon knew this, Jaewon cut him off, saying he had intended to hand B-Strain over to the harvester known as the Jet Black Monarch. A cold sweat formed on B-Strain's brow. He demanded to know who Jaewon truly was, alarmed that the prize he had been nurturing for so many years was now breaking free. Jaewon shattered his restraints effortlessly and, like an eagle, lunged at B-Strain. Fear gripped B-Strain, forcing him to retreat. Somehow, he had been injured, and when he looked closer, he was shocked to see Jaewon holding the overload adapter. The day after Jaewon reached the 100th floor, he had been plagued by countless doubts. The very essence of the world felt as if it were tearing apart, and that was when the whispers began. Eventually, he reached a state beyond all doubt, piercing straight through to the heart of understanding itself. B-Strain, astonished by his power, severed the link, lifting the temporal restrictions and allowing Jaewon's full strength to emerge. He warned Jaewon that he would no longer hold back. Even though Jaewon had adapted with remarkable speed after completing the tutorial, B-Strain reminded him that humans have limits. Against the mighty B-Strain, he could not hope to win. Jaewon wondered if this was truly his end as the count continued to rise. The battle raged on, and B-Strain told him that sooner or later, he would have to take part in the game, meaning that by resisting, Jaewon was only depriving himself. As the count reached its peak, a yellow light appeared in Jaewon's eye. It was the same thread of opportunity that had saved him countless times before. He lunged forward, leaving B-Strain utterly stunned. This was no longer simple adaptation. How could he be doing this? Jaewon struck him with devastating force and spoke with finality. Humans are not toys to be played with, not insignificant objects to be discarded, and not products to be sold. He would no longer follow their designs. He would destroy this place, ascend to the next floor, and keep climbing further and further until their perfect world lay in ruins. B-Strain pleaded for him to stop, insisting there was no such thing as a next level. Jaewon disagreed. They had not summoned him here for nothing. The scribbles scattered across various floors were the work of a certain artist and his suffering. On the 47th floor, Jaewon had discovered that the Tower of Nightmares was nothing more than a hollow imitation of the first demon, the highest branch of the illusion tree. He is almost certain that these markings were created by Mullick, the architect of the tower. If this truly is the root of the illusion tree, then logically, it must also have a trunk. His conclusion is simple: if he breaks through the ceiling, he should find it. He attempts exactly that, and B-Strain howls in agony as his tower is torn apart. The system struggles to redirect events onto their intended path, but it fails. Instead, it announces that while the main game was not completed, the tutorial game has officially ended. Shaewon is then transported into a dense, jungle-like world. Taking in the sight, he remarks that after so many years, he has finally found it. Strange, dog-like creatures soon surround him, eager to sink their teeth into his flesh. One charges at him, but with a single light thrust, he dispatches it instantly. Moments later, a massive beast, resembling the smaller ones, emerges. Shaewon knows a light thrust will not suffice here, so he delivers a normal thrust instead, killing it in one blow. He removes the creature's horns, noting how surprisingly weak the monsters in this place seem. Then he hears voices nearby. Investigating the source of the commotion, he spots several green-skinned creatures glaring at him, clearly displeased that he has touched the horns. Even with his questionability, he cannot fully comprehend their speech. Pointing to the horns, he proposes a trade. He only seeks some information. But the creatures are not interested in talking. One swings at him repeatedly, testing his patience. Finding them more irritating than threatening, he swiftly eliminates them all within minutes, sparing only one for interrogation. His first question is about their location, but the survivor refuses to answer. Grabbing the creature by its antennae, Shaewon demands it speak in a way he can understand. In response, the creature warns that he will die, then bites its own tongue. Shaewon notes that while their strength is lacking, their willpower is formidable. Planting the antennae into the ground, he begins looting the bodies for anything useful. Among the spoils, he finds a small dimensional pouch with a storage capacity of 2 cubic meters. It functions much like an inventory, something especially valuable now, as he has been unable to interact with the system since leaving the tower. He had expected to access interface systems in other dimensional worlds, but once again, Beast Rain seems to have deceived him. Fortunately, he can still use question to identify items. Analyzing a shimmering stone, he learns it is a spirit stone, capable of increasing spiritual energy. This makes him wonder if these stones, though varying in color, might all have been crafted by the green creatures. They are certainly valuable, given their luster. When it finishes, Shaewon notices a map left behind. It depicts a place called Chaos, a location Beast Rain never mentioned. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a group of people is being pursued by beasts. One woman hurls knives at the creatures, but accidentally strikes one of her own allies. She quickly apologizes, and he lets it slide mainly because he finds her attractive. However, she apologizes again when she realizes she has unintentionally lured a massive bourne straight toward the group. Jae-won watches the group from above, quickly noticing that the woman appears to be the strongest among them. Could they be on bad terms for her to act this way? If this continues, they'll all end up dead. Still, how could people this weak have possibly cleared the tower, especially with skills like that? The red-haired man charges forward to attack, and the woman moves to assist. But her efforts go awry and she strikes him directly in the ear. She laughs awkwardly while apologizing, but he curses at her incompetence. She retorts that he doesn't have to be so rude. After all, she was only trying to help. He starts to respond, but the beast makes a move to swallow him whole. At that moment, Jae-won leaps down, landing directly on the beast and ending its life in a single strike. As the dust settles, Jae-won stands revealed with his sword in hand. The group stares in shock. After exchanging a few words, Jae-won offers them the Bourne's corpse. The woman bites her nails in frustration, prompting him to ask if the horn is especially important. They explain that it is taking down a Bourne typically requires at least 10 people. Jae-won muses that since he had recently defeated a monster with even more horns, it seems logical that the more horns a beast has, the stronger it is. The woman steps forward, demanding to know his identity. She insists there isn't a single adapter in Chaos capable of killing a Bourne with one thrust. Jae-won turns to her and simply asks what Chaos is, leaving her visibly surprised. As they walk, the group's leader asks if Jae-won is truly just passing through this place. Jae-won confirms, and the leader notes it's unusual for a stranger to speak their language so fluently, though he admits language barriers are rare here. The leader asks again if Jae-won truly doesn't mind them keeping the Bourne. Jae-won confirms they can have it. The woman, however, grows more curious. For a supposed passerby, He possesses extraordinary power, able to kill a Born in one blow without using any skills. She attempts a detailed inquiry on him, but it fails. Even so, she estimates his spirit power to be about equal to that of a non-adapter. Who is this man, really? Leaning in, she quietly tells him she has a question. Across all of Chaos, there are only a handful of adapters capable of killing a Born with a single strike. She wants to know who he is and where he came from. Jaewon responds with a question of his own. What is Chaos? She wonders aloud if he's mocking her, but when he denies it, she presses him on why he keeps asking the same thing. He simply stares at her for several seconds. She wonders if he truly doesn't understand her words, or if the question of who he is might simply be too difficult for him to answer. Jaewon eventually explains she already understands what he means, but as for who he is, that's complicated. Where he belonged, and the relationships he had on Earth, all became meaningless the moment he was brought to the tower. In exchange, he gained new friends and forged new memories here. But as the tutorial came to an end, those friends disappeared, like a mirage. They are likely back on Earth now, but because his clear reward was to keep all of his memories while starting over, they wouldn't remember him or anything they experienced together in the tower. He concludes by saying he doesn't remember anything. She looks apologetic at first, but quickly reveals her skepticism. She doesn't believe his claim. He points out that he never once mentioned amnesia, but she insists it makes no difference. Is he perhaps the mighty of the abyss? Jaewon has no idea what she's talking about, and tells her to stop nagging him. Finally, he draws his weapon, which is clearly hungry. She stares in shock. This must be it. That spirit weapon, surely it's the source of his strength. Spirit weapons are an uncommon sight, and the other party members have clearly noticed it as well. Their eyes glimmer with a mix of anticipation and greed. She's irritated that someone like him has managed to ruin her flawless plan. But then, a thought strikes her. She decides to stop pressing him about his identity on one condition. In return, she would like to make him an offer. Would he be willing to hear it? Mino, as she calls herself, proceeds to explain the fundamentals of what Chaos is and shares a few details about the party they are currently traveling with. Most notably, she reveals that they are a vile group belonging to a clan known as Red Fox. Her intention is clear. She's essentially asking him to kill them all. For now, he remains cautious, especially since she warns that they will soon attempt to attack him. When night falls, the leader suggests they make camp nearby, as traveling after dark could provoke more horned monsters. They settle in, and Jaewon reflects that according to the map he found, the village should be close. Using his comprehension now in its second stage, he overhears the group whispering among themselves. They've learned that he is at the level of a non-adapter, and it's apparent to them that the spirit sword has been carrying him through his battles thus far. Spirit weapons are treasures obtainable only in the abyss. Jaewon suspects their intentions are far from friendly. What they don't know is that he acquired his weapon from the very root of the illusion tree. From what Beast Strn has said, the tower's equipment isn't particularly remarkable, so it's strange to him that so many people are interested in him. This only reinforces his suspicion that this is not the almighty land it's claimed to be. As the party prepares to move, Mino approaches first, remarking that he should ready that spirit weapon of his. Kaewon replies that he doesn't have it at the moment. He lent it to someone for the night watch. She silently marvels at his boundless foolishness. Eventually, the party surrounds them. The leader calls him a fool, remarking that even if he had the mystical weapon, it would be useless against the mighty Red Fox. Mino asks if he truly wants to see more blood spilled tonight than usual. Hwan smiles, eager for the chance to witness her full abilities. The attackers charge, but Mino swiftly throws 2 knives, striking her targets cleanly in the head. She kicks another foe, then draws and throws another blade into the last remaining attacker. She lands lightly, apologizing for the force behind her throws, though, she admits, her anger made her strikes heavier than intended. From this moment forward, she vows, they will all pay for what they've done. The leader declares that his suspicions of her began when she, accidentally, started luring monsters toward them. She is indeed the Witch of Massacre, just as he thought. But he demands to know who sent the Dark Forest clan after them. Mino dismisses the question. Countless people want them dead, left to rot within chaos, because they are murderers to the core. The leader lunges forward, stating that the Dark Forest clan would never intervene over such a matter. Wielding a spirit weapon, he accuses her of taking this request personally, warning that if that's the case, she won't leave alive tonight. She calls him cowardly for relying on a spirit weapon, but he replies that he has an insurance plan in place, and she needn't worry about him. Scanning the surroundings, she senses that every opponent here is at least a Stage 1 adapter, with perhaps 40 or more encircling the area. No wonder she felt so many presences earlier. The leader adds that besides her, the infamous Witch of Massacre, there's also the man who felled a beehorn with a single strike. So preparing this much is only natural, right? Still, if he had known he would obtain the spirit sword so easily, he wouldn't have summoned their master here. Mino is genuinely surprised. Black Fox himself has arrived, which means he must have plenty of free time these days. Clant, the Black Fox, the Red Fox clan master, and a Stage 3 adapter remarks that she should feel honored by his presence, as they have gathered half of the Red Fox clan just for her. She replies that she is indeed honored, but since he is already free, couldn't he have waited a little longer? She thinks to herself that if they fought one-on-one, she might have a chance at winning. Turning to Jaewon, she tells him she cannot protect him, but that he should escape quickly using the stone. When he asks what it is, Mino explains that it's a return stone, which will send him to the nearest fortress. She only has one with her at the moment, so he should use it and leave. It isn't a stone that would send someone to the past, its purpose is to save you in the present. He wonders how things might have turned out if Yun Hyun had possessed this stone instead of that useless Marstone. Jaewon asks if, given the chance to return to the past, she would take it. Mino admits that the timing isn't ideal for such a question, but she answers honestly, she would not. She has truly lived her life to the fullest, and if she is fated to die tonight, then so be it, she will not return to the past, regardless of the outcome. Jaewon taps her shoulder and calmly tells her that she will not die. In that brief moment of confusion, he suddenly lunges forward, felling several opponents in a single strike. Clant unleashes the Fire King's 14 strikes to strengthen his subordinates, but Chan counters with Void, cutting through all of them before reaching Clant. Clant does his best to block, but the attack pierces through, leaving a massive hole in his chest. Terrified, the leader of the small group presents the spirit weapon to him, and Jaewon uses it to eliminate the remaining enemies. Mino is stunned. She had thought he was a clumsy, dull-witted fool. She realizes she was completely wrong. He is strong, truly strong. She approaches and once more asks who he is. But Jaewon wonders to himself, has she already forgotten? Perhaps she is the one with amnesia. She calls him narrow-minded and demands the return stone back. Jaewon claims he lost it, which infuriates her, as such stones are very expensive. That night, they sit by the campfire. To Jaewon, the moment feels unexpectedly peaceful. Mino continues searching for her return stone, questioning why she ever entrusted it to this foolish human in the first place. He suspects she has known what he was from the start, a human. She laughs, thinking he's joking, as she is human herself. Jaewon clenches his fist and says it's good that she is. She looks at him, surprised by his expression. Is simply being human really enough for him? The next day, as they travel toward their destination, Mino asks if he truly has no memory of being in the Almighty Land before arriving here. He confirms that he does not. She admits she is envious of him. When he asks what is so enviable about losing his memories, she explains that not only she, but others as well, would feel the same once they knew, because it's obvious why most people come to chaos in the first place. He disagrees, saying it's not obvious to him, and asks how she ended up here. Her steps halt, and she warns him. If he truly understood the question he was asking, he would regret it greatly. Eventually, they arrive at the Gorgon Fortress. Jaewon notices something near the entrance, a structure that resembles the summoning ground from the first floor of the tutorial. Suddenly, a large number of people appear, screaming as though they are in the throes of death or already dead. He knows exactly why they wear such expressions. Mino observes the crowd as well, recognizing that many have arrived this time. Now, she understands the answer to a question she had once asked, how people here descend into chaos. It is a question that should never be voiced in this place, the realm of the dead. Those who perish in the Almighty Land are sent here, and if they die again in this place, they become nourishment for the illusion tree. A few guards emerge from the fortress, and their commander instructs the newcomers to form a line so they can be issued blankets. As he continues attending to them, Mino calls out to him, addressing him as James. He turns, surprised to see her, and asks why she is at the northern checkpoint. She explains that she simply wandered here, and since they are not strangers, he allows her inside without delay. However, James warns her that circumstances have changed. Recently, they were ordered to check the identification of all who wish to enter the fortress. This news disappoints her, as the practice seems outdated. She asks Jaewon whether he also lacks identification, and he responds with a nod. Seeing an opportunity, Mino approaches James. She apologizes for not having her identification, then produces the Born Horn. James discreetly slips it into his pocket and tells her she is free to pass. He then asks John for his identification, but naturally, John has none. Mino quickly intervenes, suggesting that if John pleads for her help, she might assist him, but only if he begs. James firmly states that without identification, John cannot enter the fortress. Chaewon begins pulling something from his bag, and Mino's mind jumps to the worst possibility. Could he actually intend to kill the security troops? Considering how unpredictable he is, it seems entirely possible. She steps in front of him to defuse the situation just as a voice from behind them asks if there is a problem. Mino realizes they may be in serious trouble. The speaker is none other than the most well-known officer in Gorgon's forest, the cleanest checkpoint captain, the notoriously stubborn Carlton. He demands an explanation from James, who quickly provides one that the man before them is trying to enter the fortress without identification. Carlton states that such entry is prohibited. When Hyewon asks why, Carlton explains that if someone cannot be verified due to lack of identification, the captain has the authority to deny them entry. This is in accordance with the entry law of Gorgon, Article 27, Paragraph 4. Carlton's use of his law skill forces everyone nearby to bow in compliance, a skill Mino finds particularly inconvenient. Jaewon, however, easily cuts through the restraints placed upon him and tells Carlton to stop, declaring he has no reason or interest in hearing the law. He asks what is written on the identification. Carlton replies that it lists the bearer's name, organizational affiliation, job, criminal record, and similar details. Jaewon responds that in that case, he will not be needing one since he refuses to identify himself. Puzzled by why his skill is ineffective against Jaewon, Carlton attempts to use it again. Quoting Article 2, Paragraph 6, he announces that he will restrain him. Blue chains begin to wrap around Chan, but the moment they make contact, they shatter instantly. Everyone present is taken aback, especially the guards. Chien asks whether he can simply do what the woman just did. Mino reflects on her actions, straightforward bribery. The recipients of the bribe, along with their accomplices, now appear visibly uneasy about what might happen next. Chaewon tosses him something, suggesting he simply take it and allow them inside. James immediately rebukes him for attempting something as base as bribery on the captain, going so far as to recommend the man's immediate execution. Carlton, however, has other plans. He has been expecting an emissary of the Dear Whisperer. Producing a scanning device, he begins examining Mino, revealing that her soul corruption has reached 15%. He advises her to take her medicine immediately, an instruction that Carlton firmly supports. Chon inquires about the meaning of soul corruption. Mino explains that it is a chronic condition affecting those who reside here. A person's soul gradually becomes tainted over time. Once the corruption reaches its limit, the outcome is inevitable, something Chan likely already suspects. This is why horned beasts, or more specifically their horns, are so valuable in this region. He saw for himself how readily the man accepted the bribe. This is because the offered item was the only known medicine that can slow soul corruption. They proceed to scan Juwon next. The device emits a red light, indicating no trace of corruption. Carlton smiles and returns the spirit stone to him, noting that he had already verified it. Juwon asks why he didn't keep it, and Carlton advises him not to hand it over carelessly, as it is highly valuable. Juwon also remarks that he is not the Dear Whisperer Carlton was expecting, to which Carlton responds that he already knew. Once inside, James questions whether it is truly wise to allow those people through. Carlton counters by asking if James knows what a spirit stone is. James replies that it is a rare item, particularly prized by adapters for boosting their energy. Carlton agrees, but adds that its value goes beyond that. Removing his glove, he reveals a hand marred by corruption. He explains that anyone who is not the Deer Whisperer cannot control the Spirit Stone without succumbing to advanced soul corruption, the sole exception being himself. Although the man they encountered may not be the Deer Whisperer, he is nonetheless able to wield the stone without harm. James asks whether he can really be trusted. Carlton clarifies that it is not the man he trusts, but his soul. The device that measures corruption showed an unprecedented result earlier, 0%. The instrument is not faulty. There is only one circumstance where it fails to detect corruption, when a soul is purer than any other within chaos. Furthermore, it ultimately does not matter whether he is the Deer Whisperer. All they need is someone capable of controlling the Spirit Stone. The inner fortress will decide what to do with him. James wonders if this has any connection to the Fortress Master's illness. Carlton admits he does not know much, but based on what he has just heard, someone intended to let them pass after accepting several bribes. Later, Chaewon and Mino walk through the city streets. Chaewon finds the layout complicated and feels burdened by Mino's presence. This is partly due to Carlton's strict adherence to rules, constantly reciting regulations and demanding identification. Unfortunately for her, Mino has no defense against his relentless bureaucracy. As they cross a bridge, Chaewon asks where to find a skilled blacksmith. Someone nearby notices the spirit weapon he is carrying and smiles. Eventually, Mino regains her composure, but Jaewon insists she go her own way from now on. She protests, calling it unfair to cast her aside like this. Is it because of what she did at the gate? Jaewon replies that now that he is inside the fortress, he no longer needs her help. They are simply too different, and she should move on. Mino bites her lip but moves forward, unwilling to let him go just yet. She points out that he doesn't know his way around, and instead of asking strangers for directions, she can guide him herself. With a sigh, Jaewon admits he is looking for the mayor. Mino claims to know a place where he might be found and asks if they should go there. Jaewon agrees, but only after dealing with the group of people who have been following them. The goons are pleased to have finally found their targets, having heard rumors that the sword Hwan carries can shoot fire or something along those lines. Mino urges them to leave, warning that only death awaits if they continue meddling. They demand she speak more politely, explaining that the youngest among them is currently going through puberty and gets overly excited when people speak so crudely. It's not good for him, they insist, and if the group wants to be spared, they should hand over the sword along with a few valuables as a protection fee. Chu flatly refuses, while Mino is taken aback to learn that the towering giant is actually the youngest. The goons press them to grasp the seriousness of their situation quickly if they wish to avoid getting hurt. Mino, however, remains focused on how someone so massive could be the youngest, prompting the youngest to charge forward, declaring that her vulgarity must be punished. With a single thrust, Jaewon severs the attacker's hand and someone's roof in the process. The group, insulted, declares they will never forgive him for injuring their precious little brother and vow to avenge him at all costs. One of them points out that he's still alive. Jaewon, unfazed by their threats, simply stares back at them. They all rush in, swords drawn, and the sound of clashing steel rings out. As Jaewon calmly cleans his blade, Mino asks if he really settles everything with just thrusts. He explains that indeed he does, it's the only thing he knows how to do. Light, medium, thrust, anything goes. Mino suspects he's joking, but recalls another fighter who only knew one technique, though that one used slashes instead of thrusts. She then questions why he missed his first attack, destroying the roof across from them. She knows it isn't because he lacks control over his power. Jaewon explains that while dealing with the thugs, he sensed someone using a stealth skill on that very roof. He wanted to scare them off because they were getting on his nerves. Mino is shocked he would destroy a roof just to spook someone, but Jaewon considers it perfectly normal. She then suggests giving his technique a grand name, like Infinite Assure Thrust, but he refuses, saying he dislikes flashy names. Eventually, they arrive at the Twilight Dusk Smithy, the place where Mare was forged, and one of the largest smithies in Gorgon. A worker informs them that if they're placing an order, They'll have to wait, as it's especially busy today. This is an artisan from the Naven smithy. Mino asks why it's so crowded, and he explains that the owner is away, leaving only him the deputy owner in charge. If they want something quickly, buying a completed piece would be faster than requesting a custom order. Inside, another deputy owner asks the apprentices if they want to drill a hole in a quad-horn sword, which will be finished once a jewel slot is added. The apprentices eagerly volunteer, to Michael's satisfaction. However, he warns them that quad-horn is extremely durable, and breaking it will be difficult. Still, he admires their spirit and offers a prize. Whoever manages to make the hole will become deputy owner for a day. The apprentices attempt the task, but even with their finest tools and most precise strikes, they fail to leave so much as a scratch. Michael remarks that hitting it like that will never work. It's disappointing, he says, as he had given them such a rare opportunity, but they simply lack the strength. Suddenly, Chihan steps forward, saying he'd like to try. Michael assumes he's a traveling artisan and tells him that no matter which smithy he's from, he won't succeed. Even Michael's own disciples couldn't manage it. Not because they're untalented, but because the sword is exceptionally well crafted and quad-horn is notoriously difficult to work with. Chihan simply thrusts forward with a finger, releasing a shockwave. If he does this, he can become one of the deputy owners. Isn't that so? The sword suddenly shatters into pieces, sending shockwaves through the entire smithy. Michael, however, is furious, and the apprentices struggle to restrain him. Jaewon remarks that he was holding back, but Mino disputes that, saying this was far from going easy. Jaewon explains that while breaking the sword entirely isn't difficult, doing so at that precise point is the true challenge, so he offers an apology, at least. Michael, still seething, says an apology won't cut it. The quad-horn he used was extremely expensive. Michael demands to know what Jaewon intends to tell the Infinite establishment that commissioned it. Jaewon responds that he will replace it with something better. Michael scoffs, asking how a beggar like him could possibly imagine producing a superior horn. In response, Jaewon retrieves something from his pouch, a horn from a pentahorn. The smithy falls silent in shock. Jaewon asks if it will suffice as compensation, explaining that he has no quad-horns at the moment. Michael admits it's more than enough, and Jaewon then asks if he can use the smithy for a while. Michael orders the apprentices to close the door and leads Jaewon elsewhere. Mino departs, saying she has her own matters to attend to. Michael brings Jaewon to the finest smithy in all of Gorgon, the Twilight Dusk. Outfitted with the best facilities an artisan could dream of, it is a place worthy of great craftsmanship. Since Jaewon is a deputy owner for the day, Michael grants him full use of it. Jaewon thanks him for his generosity, prompting Michael to ask how he acquired such a rare horn. Jaewon explains that he personally hunted the pentahorn, aptly named for its 5 horns. Jaewon then requests Michael's help in crafting a sword sheath, admitting it's his first attempt at such a thing. Michael is astonished that he would use such a precious material for something as simple as a sheath. Just how extraordinary must this sword be? Jaewon hands it over. Michael examines it closely, recognizing it as a replica of the Ice Dragon sword. Crafted by the mayor himself, it is both rare and visually striking. Even so, Michael believes using pentahorn is excessive. It would be better to forge a whole new sword. Before he can say more, the sword suddenly springs from his hands and begins devouring the horn. Michael realizes it's a spirit weapon, and not just any. This one contains the soul of a high-class race. He asks how Jaewon came to possess it, then notes that the weapon is evolving, its form changing before their eyes. Once the transformation is complete, Jaewon will need to give it a new name. Jaewon asks why. Michael explains that when a spirit weapon evolves, its original name disappears completely. The horn has been consumed in the process, but Jaewon reassures him he has more. Michael recalls that a pentahorn, of course, has 5 horns. He asks how he can assist, and Jaewon says he first wants to observe Michael's work with the materials. Michael asks if he has a design in mind, but Jaewon leaves that decision to the professional. Though sweating at the challenge, Michael, the Master of Dawn, confidently declares he will show Jaewon what he can do. Meanwhile, inside Gorgon's inner fortress, a man bows before an important figure, reporting that the thugs were slaughtered and the target escaped. Minister Urchin Zebra asks how they were defeated. The man admits he doesn't know. By the time he regained consciousness, he was lying atop a roof, discovered by the target. Urchin notes that anyone capable of detecting a high-grade master-level stealth technique so easily must be formidable, likely a stage 5 adapter or higher. He orders that manpower be replenished, the fortress searched thoroughly, and the target brought to him. The man accepts the order and leaves, while Urchin remains deep in thought. He grows impatient, urging the fortress master to hold on just a little longer. Inside a dimly lit bar, a holographic display projects this week's top 10 list, hosted by Siren. She announces that the final video for the day might be familiar to the viewers, a piece that has become both wildly popular in Little Brother and the subject of intense controversy. At the center of attention is the legendary 99th floor solo clear, featuring Jaewon. His face, however, is obscured. The bar's patrons murmur among themselves, speculating about his fate, noting that the monarch seemed to favor him greatly. One customer claims the tower's cultivation was suspended because that demon bastard was up to something and likely got caught. Rumors swirl that Jaewon abandoned cultivation entirely and fled, leading some to dismiss the video as fake, insisting no one could clear the tower alone. As they order more drinks, the bar's atmosphere shifts when Mino walks in, drawing every gaze. She takes a seat at the counter, fending off an overly forward man with a sharp word that sends him retreating. Alone, she wonders why she suddenly feels so unsettled, and orders something strong enough to drown her thoughts. As she drinks, she mutters bitterly about that ridiculous guy, a complete lunatic who thinks he's a big deal. Claire, the bar owner, cuts in, saying she's heard enough. With so many men already vying for her attention, why waste time on someone like him? Mino admits that seeing him stirs up emotions she can't quite control. She explains that he destroys everything without hesitation, swinging his sword as if the rules of this place mean nothing to him. He speaks in ways she can't comprehend, once even telling her she wasn't human words that have lingered in her mind. Around here, everyone struggles to survive, yet he appears suddenly, wearing a look that sets him apart from all others, almost as though he looks down on them. That side of him makes her restless. Claire pats her on the head, calling her a child, and warns her to stay away from him, or she could end up dead. Suddenly, a golden bird bursts into the bar, delivering a scroll to Mino. It's from Carlton. She frowns, wondering what he could want from her. As she opens it, a voice from behind asks if she's the Witch of Massacre. Mino reacts instantly, striking with a dagger, but the man seizes her arm. He remarks that he doesn't mind a rough greeting.
Jaewon begins pulling something from his bag, and Mino's mind jumps to the worst possibility. Could he actually intend to kill the security troops? Considering how unpredictable he is, it seems entirely possible. She steps in front of him to defuse the situation just as a voice from behind them asks if there is a problem. Mino realizes they may be in serious trouble. The speaker is none other than the most well-known officer in Gorgon's Forest, the cleanest checkpoint captain, the notoriously stubborn Carlton. He demands an explanation from James, who quickly provides one that the man before them is trying to enter the fortress without identification. Carlton states that such entry is prohibited. When Hyewon asks why, Carlton explains that if someone cannot be verified due to lack of identification, the captain has the authority to deny them entry. This is in accordance with the entry law of Gorgon, Article 27, Paragraph 4. Carlton's use of his law skill forces everyone nearby to bow in compliance, a skill Mino finds particularly inconvenient. Jaewon, however, easily cuts through the restraints placed upon him and tells Carlton to stop, declaring he has no reason or interest in hearing the law. He asks what is written on the identification. Carlton replies that it lists the bearer's name, organizational affiliation, job, criminal record, and similar details. Jaewon responds that in that case, he will not be needing one since he refuses to identify himself. Puzzled by why his skill is ineffective against Jaewon, Carlton attempts to use it again. Quoting Article 2, Paragraph 6, he announces that he will restrain him. Blue chains begin to wrap around Chan, but the moment they make contact, they shatter instantly. Everyone present is taken aback, especially the guards. Chian asks whether he can simply do what the woman just did. Mino reflects on her actions' straightforward bribery. The recipients of the bribe, along with their accomplices, now appear visibly uneasy about what might happen next. Shaewon tosses him something, suggesting he simply take it and allow them inside. James immediately rebukes him for attempting something as base as bribery on the captain, going so far as to recommend the man's immediate execution. Carlton, however, has other plans. He has been expecting an emissary of the Dear Whisperer. Producing a scanning device, he begins examining Mino, revealing that her soul corruption has reached 15%. He advises her to take her medicine immediately, an instruction that Carlton firmly supports. Chon inquires about the meaning of soul corruption. Mino explains that it is a chronic condition affecting those who reside here. A person's soul gradually becomes tainted over time. Once the corruption reaches its limit, the outcome is inevitable, something Chon likely already suspects. This is why horned beasts, or more specifically their horns, are so valuable in this region. He saw for himself how readily the man accepted the bribe. This is because the offered item was the only known medicine that can slow soul corruption. They proceed to scan Juwon next. The device emits a red light, indicating no trace of corruption. Carlton smiles and returns the spirit stone to him, noting that he had already verified it. Juwon asks why he didn't keep it, and Carlton advises him not to hand it over carelessly, as it is highly valuable. Juwon also remarks that he is not the Dear Whisperer Carlton was expecting, to which Carlton responds that he already knew. Once inside, James questions whether it is truly wise to allow those people through. Carlton counters by asking if James knows what a spirit stone is. James replies that it is a rare item, particularly prized by adapters for boosting their energy. Carlton agrees, but adds that its value goes beyond that. Removing his glove, he reveals a hand marred by corruption. He explains that anyone who is not the Dear Whisperer cannot control the Spirit Stone without succumbing to advanced soul corruption, the sole exception being himself. Although the man they encountered may not be the Dear Whisperer, he is nonetheless able to wield the stone without harm. James asks whether he can really be trusted. Carlton clarifies that it is not the man he trusts, but his soul. The device that measures corruption showed an unprecedented result earlier, 0%. The instrument is not faulty. There is only one circumstance where it fails to detect corruption, when a soul is purer than any other within chaos. Furthermore, it ultimately does not matter whether he is the Dear Whisperer. All they need is someone capable of controlling the Spirit Stone. The inner fortress will decide what to do with him. James wonders if this has any connection to the Fortress Master's illness. Carlton admits he does not know much, but based on what he has just heard, someone intended to let them pass after accepting several bribes. Later, Chaewon and Mino walk through the city streets. Chaewon finds the layout complicated and feels burdened by Mino's presence. This is partly due to Carlton's strict adherence to rules, constantly reciting regulations and demanding identification. Unfortunately for her, Mino has no defense against his relentless bureaucracy. As they cross a bridge, Chaewon asks where to find a skilled blacksmith. Someone nearby notices the spirit weapon he is carrying and smiles. Eventually, Mino regains her composure, but Juwon insists she go her own way from now on. She protests, calling it unfair to cast her aside like this. Is it because of what she did at the gate? Juwon replies that now that he is inside the fortress, he no longer needs her help. They are simply too different, and she should move on. Mino bites her lip but moves forward, unwilling to let him go just yet. She points out that he doesn't know his way around, and instead of asking strangers for directions, she can guide him herself. With a sigh, Juwon admits he is looking for the mayor. Mino claims to know a place where he might be found and asks if they should go there. Juwon agrees, but only after dealing with the group of people who have been following them. The goons are pleased to have finally found their targets, having heard rumors that the sword Hwan carries can shoot fire or something along those lines. Mino urges them to leave, warning that only death awaits if they continue meddling. They demand she speak more politely, explaining that the youngest among them is currently going through puberty and gets overly excited when people speak so crudely. It's not good for him, they insist, and if the group wants to be spared, they should hand over the sword along with a few valuables as a protection fee. Chu flatly refuses, while Mino is taken aback to learn that the towering giant is actually the youngest. The goons press them to grasp the seriousness of their situation quickly if they wish to avoid getting hurt. Mino, however, remains focused on how someone so massive could be the youngest, prompting the youngest to charge forward, declaring that her vulgarity must be punished. With a single thrust, Juwin severs the attacker's hand and someone's roof in the process. The group, insulted, declares they will never forgive him for injuring their precious little brother and vow to avenge him at all costs. One of them points out that he's still alive. Jaewon, unfazed by their threats, simply stares back at them. They all rush in, swords drawn, and the sound of clashing steel rings out. As Jaewon calmly cleans his blade, Mino asks if he really settles everything with just thrusts. He explains that indeed he does, it's the only thing he knows how to do. Light, medium, thrust, anything goes. Mino suspects he's joking, but recalls another fighter who only knew one technique, though that one used slashes instead of thrusts. She then questions why he missed his first attack, destroying the roof across from them. She knows it isn't because he lacks control over his power. Jaewon explains that while dealing with the thugs, he sensed someone using a stealth skill on that very roof. He wanted to scare them off because they were getting on his nerves. Mino is shocked he would destroy a roof just to spook someone, but Jaewon considers it perfectly normal. She then suggests giving his technique a grand name, like Infinite Asura Thrust, but he refuses, saying he dislikes flashy names. Eventually, they arrive at the Twilight Dusk Smithy, the place where Mare was forged and one of the largest smithies in Gorgon. A worker informs them that if they're placing an order, they'll have to wait, as it's especially busy today. This is an artisan from the Naven Smithy. Mino asks why it's so crowded, and he explains that the owner is away, leaving only him, the deputy owner, in charge. If they want something quickly, buying a completed piece would be faster than requesting a custom order. Inside, another deputy owner asks the apprentices if they want to drill a hole in a quad-horn sword, which will be finished once a jewel slot is added. The apprentices eagerly volunteer, to Michael's satisfaction. However, he warns them that quad-horn is extremely durable, and breaking it will be difficult. Still, he admires their spirit and offers a prize. Whoever manages to make the hole will become deputy owner for a day. The apprentices attempt the task, but even with their finest tools and most precise strikes, they fail to leave so much as a scratch. Michael remarks that hitting it like that will never work. It's disappointing, he says, as he had given them such a rare opportunity, but they simply lack the strength. Suddenly, Chihen steps forward, saying he'd like to try. Michael assumes he's a traveling artisan and tells him that no matter which smithy he's from, he won't succeed. Even Michael's own disciples couldn't manage it. Not because they're untalented, but because the sword is exceptionally well crafted and quad-horn is notoriously difficult to work with. Chihan simply thrusts forward with a finger, releasing a shockwave. If he does this, he can become one of the deputy owners. Isn't that so? The sword suddenly shatters into pieces, sending shockwaves through the entire smithy. Michael, however, is furious, and the apprentices struggle to restrain him. Jaewon remarks that he was holding back, but Mino disputes that, saying this was far from going easy. Jaewon explains that while breaking the sword entirely isn't difficult, doing so at that precise point is the true challenge, so he offers an apology, at least. Michael, still seething, says an apology won't cut it. The quad-horn he used was extremely expensive. Michael demands to know what Jaewon intends to tell the Infinite establishment that commissioned it. Jaewon responds that he will replace it with something better. Michael scoffs, asking how a beggar like him could possibly imagine producing a superior horn. In response, Jaewon retrieves something from his pouch, a horn from a pentahorn. The smithy falls silent in shock. Jaewon asks if it will suffice as compensation, explaining that he has no quad-horn horns at the moment. Michael admits it's more than enough, and Jaewon then asks if he can use the smithy for a while. Michael orders the apprentices to close the door and leads Jaewon elsewhere. Mino departs, saying she has her own matters to attend to. Michael brings Jaewon to the finest smithy in all of Gorgon, the Twilight Dusk. Outfitted with the best facilities an artisan could dream of, it is a place worthy of great craftsmanship. Since Jaewon is a deputy owner for the day, Michael grants him full use of it. Jaewon thanks him for his generosity, prompting Michael to ask how he acquired such a rare horn. Jaewon explains that he personally hunted the pentahorn aptly named for its 5 horns. Jaewon then requests Michael's help in crafting a sword sheath, admitting it's his first attempt at such a thing. Michael is astonished that he would use such a precious material for something as simple as a sheath. Just how extraordinary must this sword be? Jaewon hands it over. Michael examines it closely, recognizing it as a replica of the Ice Dragon sword. Crafted by the mayor himself, it is both rare and visually striking. Even so, Michael believes using pentahorn horn is excessive. It would be better to forge a whole new sword. Before he can say more, the sword suddenly springs from his hands and begins devouring the horn. Michael realizes it's a spirit weapon, and not just any. This one contains the soul of a high-class race. He asks how Jaewon came to possess it, then notes that the weapon is evolving, its form changing before their eyes. Once the transformation is complete, Jaewon will need to give it a new name. Jaewon asks why. Michael explains that when a spirit weapon evolves, its original name disappears completely. The horn has been consumed in the process, but Jaewon reassures him he has more. Michael recalls that a pentahorn, of course, has 5 horns. He asks how he can assist, and Jaewon says he first wants to observe Michael's work with the materials. Michael asks if he has a design in mind, but Jaewon leaves that decision to the professional. Though sweating at the challenge, Michael, the Master of Dawn, confidently declares he will show Jaewon what he can do. Meanwhile, inside Gorgon's inner fortress, a man bows before an important figure, reporting that the thugs were slaughtered and the target escaped. Minister Urchin Zeber asks how they were defeated. The man admits he doesn't know. By the time he regained consciousness, he was lying atop a roof, discovered by the target. Urchin notes that anyone capable of detecting a high-grade master-level stealth technique so easily must be formidable, likely a stage 5 adapter or higher. He orders that manpower be replenished, the fortress searched thoroughly, and the target brought to him. The man accepts the order and leaves, while Urchin remains deep in thought. He grows impatient, urging the fortress master to hold on just a little longer. Inside a dimly lit bar, a holographic display projects this week's top 10 list, hosted by Siren. She announces that the final video for the day might be familiar to the viewers, a piece that has become both wildly popular in Little Brother and the subject of intense controversy. At the center of attention is the legendary 99th floor solo clear, featuring Jaewon. His face, however, is obscured. The bar's patrons murmur among themselves, speculating about his fate, noting that the monarch seemed to favor him greatly. One customer claims the tower's cultivation was suspended because that demon bastard was up to something and likely got caught. Rumors swirl that Jaewon abandoned cultivation entirely and fled, leading some to dismiss the video as fake, insisting no one could clear the tower alone. As they order more drinks, the bar's atmosphere shifts when Mino walks in, drawing every gaze. She takes a seat at the counter, fending off an overly forward man with a sharp word that sends him retreating. Alone, she wonders why she suddenly feels so unsettled, and orders something strong enough to drown her thoughts. As she drinks, she mutters bitterly about that ridiculous guy, a complete lunatic who thinks he's a big deal. Claire, the bar owner, cuts in, saying she's heard enough. With so many men already vying for her attention, why waste time on someone like him? Mino admits that seeing him stirs up emotions she can't quite control. She explains that he destroys everything without hesitation, swinging his sword as if the rules of this place mean nothing to him. He speaks in ways she can't comprehend, once even telling her she wasn't human, words that have lingered in her mind. Around here, everyone struggles to survive, yet he appears suddenly, wearing a look that sets him apart from all others, almost as though he looks down on them. That side of him makes her restless. Claire pats her on the head, calling her a child, and warns her to stay away from him, or she could end up dead. Suddenly, a golden bird bursts into the bar, delivering a scroll to Mino. It's from Carlton. She frowns, wondering what he could want from her. As she opens it, a voice from behind asks if she's the Witch of Massacre. Mino reacts instantly, striking with a dagger, but the man seizes her arm. He remarks that he doesn't mind a rough greeting, but insists now is not the time he has a task for her. Meanwhile, back at the smithy, the refinement of the horn has taken an unexpected turn, morphing into something monstrous. Michael stares at it, baffled, unsure how they can process such a thing. Juwon hauls him upright, telling him to get a grip. Have they forgotten they're in the middle of something important? Since Michael agreed to help, they should see it through. Earlier, they had tried to pierce the horn, but even the finest tools cracked under the pressure. Michael admits defeat, saying the task is far beyond their current skill. Juwon disagrees, insisting the problem isn't skill level. He invokes the first stage of question, an ability to deconstruct the world and understand its very essence. Before Michael's eyes, the horn begins to shift. He shields himself, and when he looks again, an enormous beast stands before him. This, Juwon calmly explains, is why they must proceed methodically. But Michael trembles. If this is truly the essence of the pentahorn, then he has been treating it with skills far too trivial for its nature. However, he convinces himself that this must all be a dream, and that he only needs to wake up. He bolts toward the door, desperate to escape, while another man tries to stop him, but he refuses to listen. Bursting outside, he cries out for help, only to be struck by an even greater shock. The true, horrifying nature of this place reveals itself before his eyes. An apprentice asks if he has finished smelting, but the ever-watchful giant eye declares that he has not yet earned the right to see such truths. Inside, Jaewon continues refining the horn while Michael wrestles with confusion, questioning how such a world could exist at all, and how he ended up trapped within it. Jaewon delivers a mighty strike against the beast, yet even that blow proves insufficient. Determined, he charges again, hammer raised for another crushing attack. Meanwhile, outside, Michael spirals into madness as his entire understanding of reality collapses. Soon after, the chaos subsides, and the group succeeds in shattering the horn in two. Michael reflects bitterly, admitting that some things in this world are simply impossible for him. He feels too old, too powerless, to handle horns like these. He regrets not having come sooner to seek proper guidance. He confesses that while he wished to meet the shop's true master, the man has been absent from the workshop for quite some time. All that remains is someone like him, a feeble human who has never even built a tower. By his judgment, such a person should not even be called an apprentice. But Jaewon dismisses this line of thought. To him, race or title does not matter, only the creation of the sheath. They must press on. Michael, however, insists he has endured enough for one day. Chuan teases him, saying he should try it 10 billion times, which draws a laugh. Michael questions whether his efforts have truly been enough, even though he has pushed himself beyond his limits. He recalls everything he attempted after watching Jaewon work, even if doubt lingers. Jaewon, in turn, remembers what Jae once told him, that he had mastered nearly every blacksmithing skill, boasting a 99% chance of repairing anything. Yet at this stage, Jaewon realizes something unsettling. Perhaps he wasn't striving toward that 99% certainty, but rather struggling to escape the 1% chance of failure. Hwan knows he has been working harder than anyone else, but he wonders, does Michael understand what principle truly governs the process skill? Michael replies that if he refers to the principle itself, Mars process skill was among the earliest ever to exist. It is as primordial as fire or water, born with the world itself. He argues that no mere human could ever fully explain the origin of such things, so what is even the point of trying? Jae-won counters that if Michael can say such things, then he must not have been using his skill properly all this time. Michael glares at him, explaining firmly that the essence of the process lies in strengthening the hammer and chisel with spiritual power, and then channeling that energy to refine and sharpen the horn with precision. That is all there is to it. Jan presses further. If the principle is truly that simple, then why can't other artisans use the process skill? Michael replies that it is because they have not yet learned it. Still, he admits that if the foundation is so basic, perhaps others could wield something similar without mastering the skill itself. Jae-won challenges him. How can Michael claim to know so much when he himself does not even understand the principle of the skill? Michael fires back, asking who could possibly know the true principle of process. Does Jae-won himself claim to know it? Jae-won answers calmly, until now he did not, but he has just discovered it. He then activates the process skill upon the horn, urging the others to watch closely and tell him what they see. They watch the particles breaking apart, and Jae-won remarks that this won't be easy. Because of Michael's relentless efforts, the very walls of the world have grown as unyielding as stone. His efforts are not wrong, but doesn't he understand? If he pours himself into something and it still doesn't work, then perhaps the problem isn't him, it's the world itself. Michael is stunned by this thought, remembering when the mayor once told him he was doing well at his level. Yet that was simply the mayor's way of viewing things, not how humanity should live. Michael had asked what it meant to act as a true human, but the mayor could give him no answer. After all, he had never truly known. The truth is, cruel Michael was born into a race that limits him, a human who could never rise above being an apprentice within this body. He once tried to break past his limits, but every attempt ended in failure. Now he asks, what is it they are supposed to do? Stand against the world itself. The world seems fair, doesn't it? It rewards effort with return. So why not simply adapt and live as it is? Jae-won shakes his head. The world isn't honest. It insists that he cannot do what he knows he is capable of. Though he has aged, his fighting spirit has not faded. He tells Michael to look once more, not with the system's predetermined eyes, but with his own. Michael takes his words to heart and sees the world anew. Is this what reality has always been? A world without systems, skills, or interfaces. A world without deceit. Unless he has been delusional all along, how could he have overlooked something so simple? He grips his hammer, sets his chisel against the horn, and strikes with determination. When the work is done, Jae-won departs to attend to other matters. Together, they have managed to craft a sheath, and the sword itself seems content with the result. Michael then asks if Jae-won has chosen a name. If not, he would like to give it one. Since it is a martial weapon, the name should reflect that spirit. He suggests Lone Wolf, a name that feels perfectly suited to the blade. As Jae-won prepares to leave, Michael calls out with one final question. In the world that Jae-won sees, what does he look like? Without turning back, Jae-won replies simply that he looks human. He never looks behind him, yet who could truly understand the loneliness he carries? It is then that Jae-won notices Mino trailing after him. He asks her why she continues to follow. Standing beside him, she calmly declares her intent to kill him. Jae-won asks her reason, and she explains that it is for the sake of living a better life after claiming the spirit stone in his possession. He laughs at her words, but she softens her stance, handing him clothes as an apology of sorts. She doesn't want him to look like a beggar anymore. She then asks what he plans to do next, since he never met the mayor. Jae-won explains that Michael gave him a way to reach the mayor, and when he does, he intends to ask about the illusion tree and the path to the abyss. Mino presses him why seek such a place when those who return from it never remain the same. But Jae-won answers coldly, he has no intention of coming back. His goal is to destroy this world and everyone in it. His words shake Mino to her core. Outraged, she demands to know what gives him the right to make such a decision. Who is he to disregard the lives around him? To act as though he alone matters? To treat others as if they are not even human? Every single person here, no matter how weak or fearful, is still human. For a moment, Jae-won recalls the two individuals who have begun to shift his perspective. But then, suspicion strikes him Mino is hiding something. Someone must be holding leverage over her, forcing her to bring him back. Perhaps they have taken someone dear to her hostage. Looking toward a nearby alley, he notices a group of men watching. So that's it. She lured him here, hoping to save the one they're holding captive, even if it meant offering him up as their target. A meaningless endeavor. No matter how many times these things are saved, the truth never changes. The question reveals the true world, one ruled by data and numbers, where people are willing to sell their very souls just to climb higher in that hierarchy. He knows he'll have to deal with them eventually and find the mayor. Suddenly, Mino shatters his perception of reality, pointing out that in every sense, it's he who seems inhuman, not them. She decides they should part ways here, making it clear she has no intention of traveling with someone like him. Jae-won stares at her in shock, unable to understand why she appears human again. Through the question, Jan uncovers the truth. The men who once threatened her are actually working alongside the mayor. He realizes he must go after her once he changes. Meanwhile, Mino arrives at a bar and slowly pushes open the door. Inside, a group of thugs is tormenting the patrons. Among them stands the elder of the Forbidden Heaven clan, the eldest of the Three-Jaw brothers, Jana himself. He coldly asks why she returned alone, reminding her of their agreement. Mino retorts sharply, telling him he should never have trusted a witch like her. The one he seeks isn't coming, because he intends to destroy this world. Jana scoffs, calling her insane, before unleashing the secret art of shadows to strike her. She narrowly avoids the first blow, but Jana uses his superior position to land a painful attack. He sneers, revealing that they've erected soundproof barriers around the bar. No one outside will ever know what's happening here. He orders her to give up and bring the man to them. Mino warns him that the dark forest will come after them, but Jana laughs, knowing full well there's no dark forest branch within the Gorgon fortress. By the time word spreads, both she and her companion will already be crushed. Mino counters with the 7 daggers of the Karm's secret technique, but even that proves useless. Wounded and on her knees, she recalls Juwen once asking if she ever wished she could go back if she were given the chance to start over. In this moment, she realizes she would. If only she had followed him from the very beginning, none of this would be happening now. Suddenly, a thrust from outside crashes into the room, forcing Jana back. Mino groans in frustration, hating developments like this, and demands to know why Jae-won is here instead of destroying the world. Jae-won casually replies that the clothes she gave him didn't fit, while the thugs smirk, pleased he's shown up on his own. Jae-won wastes no time. If they're working with the mayor, then they should bring him here immediately. The goons mutter among themselves, questioning whether he's insane. One even recalls the rumors about him defying the fortress, realizing they must be true. Mino urges him to be cautious, warning that their leader is a 4th-stage adapter. Jae-won, however, stands firm, declaring that he will not lose. Jana leaps into the air with his men, preparing to strike. He sneers at Jae-won's arrogance, promising to teach him an unforgettable lesson. Jae-won lashes out with a light thrust, so swift that Jana barely manages to dodge. The goons are stunned until now. They had all believed him to be a non-adapter. Jana himself wonders if Jae-won could be one of the legendary mighty from the abyss. Cheon reflects silently, recalling that until now, the only being capable of dodging Jae-won's light thrust was the 5-horned beast. Could it be that a 4th-stage adapter rivals such a monster? In the end, it hardly matters to Jae-won. Mino suddenly cries out for Claire, the bartender. Jana snarls, warning that if they wish to fight, they can, but he will not guarantee Claire's safety. Claire urges them not to hold back, but before she can say more, a thug strikes her hard across the face. He growls, warning her to stay silent unless she wants to endure more punishment. Mino trembles with fear, pleading with Juan to protect her. Surely, he can save her, can't he? Yet Juan feels her request is pointless. He isn't here for her, he's here to find the mayor, and nothing will stand in his way. Whether enemy or bystander, anyone obstructing him must be cut down. Desperate, Mino clings to his coat, reminding him that she is still human just like him, just like everyone else. Juan pauses, haunted by everything that has transpired. That strange, unsettling sensation creeps over him again as the raging skeleton before him begins to transform into a human figure. He curses the cruel repetition of this fate, then drives his weapon upward with immense force, piercing through the roof and sending out a beacon for the guards to see. Carlton, who had been nearby, immediately notices and urges everyone to move. One of the thugs remarks that the soundproof barrier has collapsed. At that very moment, Carlton bursts in, accompanied by heavily armored guards. He is taken aback to find Huan present and demands an explanation. Juan remarks that Carlton has arrived just in time, for the brute before them is breaking the very laws Carlton values so highly. Juan admits he doesn't recall the exact statutes, but perhaps it falls under Gorgon criminal law, chapter 276, 4 or something along those lines. Regardless, he suspects this man is scheming with the mayor, using the bar as a base to destroy their world. Mino interjects, accusing Juan himself of harboring such intentions. Carlton, however, responds with authority, citing Gorgon criminal law chapters 194, 4 and 124, 6, and declares that everyone involved will be arrested without a warrant for crimes of destruction and kidnapping. As the group attempts to retreat, Carlton activates silver restraints, binding 2 of them instantly, before summoning his weapon. Genya charges with his sword, clashing against Carlton in a violent strike that sends shockwaves through the bar. Yet as the battle continues, Genya feels himself steadily overwhelmed. His blade begins to fracture, and with one final desperate assault, he is ensnared by Carlton's restraints and slammed to the ground. Defeated, he surrenders. Carlton reflects on what he has heard, that Genya is as naive as he is righteous, and finds it all too true. But then, in an unexpected twist, Genya hurls a small orb behind him. It bursts, filling the bar with thick, choking smoke. Outside, he mutters regretfully about having to unleash the black cloud here. One of the thugs panics, noting that their youngest member inhaled some of the black cloud. Jenny scolds him, reminding him that he had been told to wear his mask properly. Perhaps the boy will survive if he only inhaled a little, but only time will tell. A voice cuts through the tension, mocking their recklessness. They were bold indeed to use the black cloud without the clan leader's permission. The speaker reveals himself, the elder of the Forbidden Heaven clan, the infamous lustful demon, Huang. He questions whether the Witch of Massacre was truly so powerful, and demands to know why she was not captured and delivered to him as promised. Genya explains bitterly that it wasn't her, it was Carlton who ruined everything. Intrigued, Huang smirks, pleased by the thought. If Carlton was inside, then surely he had inhaled the black cloud by now. This, he says, will be entertaining to witness. But then, to Huang's astonishment, he spots Juan carrying Mino out of the smoke. He demands to know who this stranger is. Without hesitation, he thrusts his weapon forward, obliterating the massive tree they had been standing on. Genya stares in disbelief. How could Juan be completely unharmed after inhaling the black cloud? Such a thing was unheard of. Even a deer whisperer, without antennas, could never have emerged so unscathed. Juan eyes the group coldly, wondering aloud if they are merely a cleanup crew. He finds their presence irritating. Gathering his strength, he admits he hadn't planned to reveal this power so soon, but circumstances leave him no choice. He unleashes Garnak's majesty. The blade erupts with the spectral form of the beast it was forged from. In an instant of sheer terror and confusion, The newly arrived foot soldiers are carved apart, torn to pieces before anyone can even perceive his movement. Faced with this display, Huang recoils. He wants nothing more to do with this terrifying figure. Retreating swiftly, he mutters that he will leave the matter to those who are, surely, more capable of handling it. Genya spits out the words, calling him a rat bastard, and then looks over at the thugs surrounding him. A grim thought runs through his mind. This is how it all ends. This moment is the conclusion of his entire life. Jaewon coldly states that there's no way for him to survive. His only option is to answer the question, "Where is the mayor you're hiding?" Genya responds with defiance. If he were to reveal that information, surviving this encounter would be pointless. Once that person finds out, he'd be better off dead, and he is absolutely certain of it. Curious, Jaewon demands to know who this mysterious figure is. With no way out and driven by desperation, Genya pulls out a spirit stone and swallows it whole. Jaewon's eyes widen in surprise. Mino's words echo in his mind that everyone here looks like they're eating drugs. But that's a misunderstanding. These aren't drugs. They're consumed to reduce soul pollution, since nobody wants to truly die. Suddenly, Genya's body distorts and mutates into a grotesque form, towering above the others. His scream echoes like something inhuman, and now he has fully become one of the dead. With monstrous claws, he slaughters those around him. His perception shifts. He can finally see the true world, the reality he has been trapped in all this time. What value does dignity hold in a world like this? What had he really feared all along? Now he was free, unshackled from the confines of flesh and fear. But his liberation is cut short. He feels the menacing glare of Cheyenne from behind. Genya whirls around, attempting a sudden strike to catch him off guard, but he halts, bewildered. What is a human doing in the world of the dead? Jaewon confronts him, asking what he has become, though the exact answer hardly matters because he can still be killed. With a decisive strike, Jaewon channels all his strength into a single thrust, severing Genya's head clean off. In his last fleeting moments, Genya recalls fragments of his past life. A tear slides down his face as a thought crosses his mind. Is it really raining again? And with that, he fades away forever. Jaewon stares at the body, pondering what exactly that creature was. But there's no time to linger. He needs to find someone among the survivors from the bar who can lead him to the mayor. Alone once more, he leaves the battlefield behind. When he arrives where the wounded are being treated, he sees Mino in critical condition. Carlton, barely clinging to life, urges that they alert the inner fortress. Mino weakly grabs Jaewon's cloak, pleading for him to kill her while she still remains herself. He looks at her closely and realizes she truly is human. His comprehension doesn't work on her. His questions falter whenever she's near. Why then would the dead collapse? Still, in the path he is walking, there is no place for hesitation. If this is her wish, he must grant it. But before he can act, Claire seizes his hand and begs him to wait. There might still be hope. A soldier rushes in, urging Claire to take Mino to the medical facility immediately. Claire pleads again, imploring Jaewon not to do anything. At the makeshift medical camp, the doctors examine Mino, noting how her condition deteriorates rapidly. Her dedication has already advanced far. Outside, sudden commotion draws Jaewon's attention. Alarms blare across the fortress, urging immediate evacuation. People panic, asking soldiers where to run. But one unfortunate man approaches the wrong guard, already turned into one of the dead. The creature slaughters him without hesitation, and soon more dead pour in, tearing through everyone they can reach. Then, in the chaos, a group of figures leap from the sky and crash down onto the dead, ready to fight. They begin slaughtering everyone in their path, and at the center of it all stands their leader, a man with long hair, wielding a distinct blade unlike any other. Claire observes him closely and realizes this must be the individual Mino had warned her about, the one who openly declared his rejection of all rules within this place. He intends to judge the entire world by his own standards, deciding for himself what it truly means to be human. Claire reflects on this type of person. She has encountered someone like him before. People do not remain here and adapt out of ignorance. They do so because they have no other choice. Jaewon interjects, claiming that the others simply lack the courage to move forward. Claire questions him, courage for what purpose? Jaewon explains that true courage lies in striving for a definition beyond the one imposed upon them, something closer to the truth. Claire admits he is probably right, and such a pursuit does seem like something he would chase. Yet she cannot bring herself to follow that path. She lacks that kind of courage. What she does know, however, is that he is extraordinarily dangerous and must leave. Her thought contradicts Mino's words. Mino had told her not to abandon him, believing that people found hope simply by gazing upon him. For that reason, this world must not be forsaken, not yet. James then breaks the silence, asking how much medicine remains. A doctor replies gravely, nearly all of it had been used to stabilize the fortress master, leaving very little in reserve. Frustrated, James curses and orders his subordinates to bring whatever supplies remain. Jaewon carefully studies their process of preparing the medicine powder ground from the horn of a horned beast. Jaewon turns to James, asking if there is a way to bring Carlton back from death itself. James replies bitterly that if such a method existed, he would not be acting in such despair. Jaewon refuses to give up. He shakes Carlton's body violently, striking him in desperation. Against all odds, Carlton stirs awake, his first words a plea for Jaewon to kill him, insisting he is the only one capable of doing so. Jaewon scoffs, remarking that in situations like this, people usually ask for help, not death. Even in his weakened state, Carlton mutters the laws he had devoted his life to. Jaewon dismisses it as useless loyalty, yet admits it is worthy of respect. Still, he reflects bitterly. If there had been more men like Carlton from the beginning, perhaps he would never have been condemned to 40 years in that wretched tower. But Carlton's soul corruption surges to 94%. The process of deification has nearly consumed him. At that moment, the anti-demon suppression unit arrives, led by Jahir, the captain of the extermination squad, and a Stage 5 adapter. James immediately understands the implication of Jahir's presence. Jahir cites Gorgon's special law, Article 1(4), declaring that Carlton and the other corrupted individual must be eliminated at once. He raises his sword and strikes toward Carlton. But before the blade can connect, Jaewon intercepts it barehanded. He insists that Carlton cannot die yet. There are still questions that must be answered. Jahir reels in shock, unable to comprehend how his attack was blocked. He demands to know who Jaewon truly is. Yet, he warns, Carlton is moments away from turning into a dead. If a Stage 5 adapter were to fall, the disaster would be immeasurable. Their mission is to ensure that never happens. Jan steps forward, suggesting that if Carlton is destined to become a dead, there might still be a way to save him. He produces a rare horn, stunning the medic, who gasps at the sight of it. With such an artifact, they might indeed have a chance. Without hesitation, Jaewon crushes it into powder, nearly making the medic faint from the waste of such a priceless relic. The powder is administered to both patients. Miraculously, Carlton's deification halts. James trembles with relief, tears welling in his eyes. But Mino's condition is different. Her deification continues to spread, her strength too depleted from battle to resist it. Jahir raises his sword once more, intent on finishing the job. But Claire steps forward, her voice firm. She demands that he summon Chang-ho, reminding him that the old master still possesses the power of dead/. Jaewon becomes intrigued by the dead/ Claire mentions, and she explains that if he uses it, the corruption will vanish. Jahir interjects, pointing out that the divine physician is currently occupied with important matters inside the inner fortress, and it would be inappropriate to summon him for something so insignificant. Members of the squad restrain Claire, While Jahir firmly tells John to step aside, he refuses to compromise on this matter. Jaewon steps forward, declaring that he will be the one to kill the woman, as he had promised her he would. He begins using his questioning technique on her, but Claire demands he stop immediately, insisting he has no right. Suddenly, the world around her fractures, and Jaewon is pulled into a vast, white void where he finds himself alone. There, he encounters a frail, elderly man who looks over Mino with concern, muttering about the trouble she's gotten herself into. He assures her she has nothing to fear, he will help her. Then his eyes fall upon Jaewon, and he is startled, asking how Jaewon managed to enter his world. After studying him, the old man questions how someone with such a noble soul could harbor such a narrow mind. Jaewon attempts to use his questioning technique on the old man, but it fails. Could this man be the very source of Mino's soul corruption? If so, perhaps her survival depends on his death. The two clash, but their strikes cancel each other out, surprising them both. Suddenly, the old man's sword shatters, and the world itself begins to crack. They are thrust back into reality. The old man curses Jaewon for breaking his mighty blade, crafted from rare trihorn. Jaewon, bewildered, simply stares. The old man reveals himself as Chung-ho, the despair divine physician. Jahir, astonished, asks why Chung-ho is here when he was supposed to be with the fortress master. Chung-ho brushes off the question, saying a beautiful woman is dying, and that matters more than who he's accompanying. He then turns to Jaewon, pointing out that his dead-attempt was ruined. Such a technique can only be performed with a sword forged from trihorn or something greater. Noticing Jaewon's sword, Chung-ho marvels at it, practically fawning over the weapon. Though Jaewon interrupts him, he offers to lend the blade, but only if Chung-ho can truly save her. Chung-ho agrees with confidence. Surprised at how readily Jaewon hands it over, Chung-ho assumes he must have great faith in his own strength. Still, there's no time to dwell on it. Returning to his own world, Chung-ho grips the sword tightly, eager to test its true potential. Jaewon watches his technique, at first thinking it might be some sort of illusion, but realizes it is more akin to the questioning technique. As Chung-ho charges forward, Jaewon realizes he's glimpsing the world through the old man's perspective. Before Chung-ho can complete his attack, he collapses. His spirit power is spent, drained earlier by his encounter with the fortress master. As the world around them crumbles, Chung-ho apologizes, admitting his failure. Jaewon takes up the sword. Chung-ho warns him, calling him foolish for trying to imitate the dead without ever experiencing this world before. Attempting such a thing isn't courageous, he says it's reckless. Jaewon silences him, declaring that for the first time in his life, he is using his power not for himself, but to save another. He begins thrusting the sword, conjuring in his mind the true image of Mino, playful yet stubborn, fragile at heart despite her training as an assassin, and someone loyal to a fault. Still, something is missing. He searches his memory one final time and adds the last piece: Mino is someone who trusts. They finally escape that strange world, and Mino expresses her gratitude to him for remembering so much about her. The corruption rate is gradually slowing, and the process of deadification has come to a halt. Chung-ho remarks that Jaewon is far less narrow-minded than he first assumed. But the real question lingers: who exactly is he? That deadly thrust he displayed just now, why did he unleash it? Jahir is stunned, unable to believe what he just witnessed. Jaewon's technique resembles that of the divine physician. Though he dislikes admitting it out loud, he acknowledges the truth. What Jaewon performed was not a skill, which is why no ordinary adapters could replicate it. This can only mean one thing: Jaewon is someone like him, an awakened. Awakened are beings who stand outside the system's rules. They are an exceedingly rare minority of humans who defied the system itself, yet miraculously gained overwhelming power. These individuals hold the ability to completely disrupt the balance of forces tied to chaos. Even within the almighty land, only a handful of awakened are known to exist. Jahir concludes that if Jaewon truly is awakened, Then he may possess the strength needed to save the Tower Master, whose life is invaluable. At that moment, the captain of the Dark Shadow Squad suddenly arrives, declaring he received authorization from the inner fortress. He is revealed to be a Stage 5 adapter. Jahir questions why he has appeared, as the Dark Shadow Squad usually has nothing to do with eliminating the dead. To everyone's surprise, the squad bows deeply before Jaewon, paying their respects to him as the Dear Whisperer. The others are visibly shaken, realizing Jaewon may be far more extraordinary than they first believed. They proceed to the inner tower, where Jiren greets Jaewon directly, asking whether he truly is the Dear Whisperer that so many claim him to be. Jaewon denies it immediately, though Jiren admits he expected that answer. The Divine Physician then observes the Spirit Stone in Jaewon's possession. These stones are renowned for amplifying spiritual power and are traditionally used to confirm a person's origin within the Emerald Bug clan. Yet Jaewon is clearly not from their lineage. So how did he come to possess such stones in the first place? Jaewon explains calmly that he took them from their original owners who are now dead. Jahir presses further, questioning who would dare kill members of the 5 great clans. Jaewon responds that he did, though he points out they struck first, leaving him no choice. Jiren reflects that while those clans are indeed greedy for resources, he wants Jaewon to recount what happened after he entered Chaos.